one of the healthiest things we can do is to allow ourselves to redefine success consciously instead of staying loyal to an old version or old definition of success. So to me, the danger is not changing. The danger is continuing to live according to a definition of success that not longer belongs to you.
Welcome to Evoke Greatness, the podcast for bold leaders and big dreamers who refuse to settle. I'm your host, Sunny, CEO, entrepreneur, and someone who's spent over 20 years building, leading, and learning what it really takes to rise. Every step of that journey has taught me something worth passing on. Lessons in business, leadership, resilience, and the psychology behind it all. Here, you'll hear raw conversations, unfiltered truths, and the kind of wisdom that ignites something deeper in you, your courage, your conviction, and your calling. This show will help you think bigger, lead better, and show up bolder in every part of your life and business. This is your place to grow. Let's rise together. You've lived this yourself, going from global corporate executive to author to coach. What, if you think back to your journey, what was the hardest part of that identity shift for you personally?
Yeah, that's, I get this question, but all the time I'm thinking about it because I might come with a very different answer. I think that one of the hardest lessons for me personally was learning to have patience with myself first and also to ask for help. I think those were the two very hard lessons because when I was in corporate, I was one of the very impatient people and, trying to drive things like very fast to achieve timelines, to achieve targets. And I think that, in a process of reinvention, and when you get into that space, you really need to be very graceful to yourself and to allow yourself the time. The other hard lesson was to be able to ask for help. And this is because many high-performing people are often perceived as capable, resilient, dependable, and emotionally strong. So over time, they become used to carry everything alone. But growth requires reflection, and reflection often becomes clearer through conversations, but also through that, silence and a bit of patience to allow the process to evolve and you to evolve through the process. So sometimes a single question from the right person can change the way you see an entire situation. And that's why I believe that, I believe deeply in mentorship and in coaching and in also having the right to attract the people resonating with your season of life and with your intention and with your direction. And, meaningful communities are the spaces where people are allowed to think honestly about their lives without having any judgment. So I really had to learn that. And I had to learn to be patient, but also to belong to those communities where actually I could be very vulnerable and very authentic and to be exactly who I am without proving anything. That was hard for me to learn.
You explain it in almost a poetic way, and it's so beautiful to hear you describe the process in general for helping others navigate, but for you personally to give a spotlight into your personal journey. So I love how you just have a gift in being able to articulate what that journey was like.
Storytelling, we do stories, I think 90% of our time. And I also believe that through stories we connect emotionally, but also in my season of life right now, sharing becomes very intentional because I believe that every shared story can support someone else's success, maybe in a different season of life. So I do believe that conversations we have right now, very intentional, being in one room with one topic, the stories which you bring, I bring, and the questions, they might create the success path for someone else.
Absolutely. You created the Strengths Velocity Lab. I'm curious how this addresses both the strengths trap and the identity piece at the same time.
Yes, the philosophy behind Strengths Velocity Lab starts from the idea that each and every of us, we do sit on a very unique foundation. And that unique foundation has four important elements, which are equally important, and they are connected between them. The first element, it's the story, the origin story. I'm calling origin story because it's the story, those kind of important experiences, challenges, some of the life shifts which brought you where you are right now. And they are unique because even if we had the same aspirations when we were young, the way how you achieved and the journey you went through versus mine is very different, right? So the origin story is unique to individual. And here is where the strengths, they become a very important element. Because each and every of us, we do have a set of top natural talents, very unique to individual. They can be discovered very simple. There are assessments for that. But the most important thing is not just to name what those natural talents are. It's important to understand how you use them. And how you use them, you understand how you use them in your past stories. And this is where you understand patterns, because there are some patterns that they are keep repeating. When you ask yourself the question, how did I use my top natural talents in that kind of situation? What was the outcome? What is still keep repeating in my life? Then you understand patterns, and understanding patterns which are driven by strengths that they are becoming very loud. Therefore, you have the opportunity to calibrate them. And that calibration is the moment when you become conscious about your strengths, the power which is in your hand, very unique. And you have the ability to put them at work very intentionally in what comes next for you as a story. The third element, it's about the values. And values, I think, is what is important and meaningful to each and every of us. And we all have different values, but for individuals, there are at least one or two which we do not compromise. And that is important for us to understand, because sometimes values are the foundation of how we create connections with others, because we share the same values. When you go and you get hired in an organization, you might want to check your personal values with the values of the organization to see if there is a certain fit, right? So values are important. And last but not least, and I take this as being again, maybe an individual responsibility, is to start thinking about your purpose.
Okay, quick pause to tell you about my partners at Row Nutrition. I came to them as a customer first. I have both Hashimoto's and I am smack dab in the middle of perimenopause. Their liposomal supplements have been a game changer for my brain fog, fatigue, and inflammation. I'm currently taking their NAD+, glutathione, and curcumin, and I recently added in both collagen and creatine. Anyone who knows me knows I only put my name behind what I actually use, and Row has earned it. You can use the code SONNIE15, SONNIE15, for 15% off at rownutrition.com, or you can click the link in the show notes and it'll take you right there. All right, let's hop back into the episode.
What motivates you? Why you are doing what you are doing? What is that? Is that kind of like, lifestyle or something that gives you energy and keeps you going every day? What is that why behind? And there were like so many books written about find your why, but I think purpose, it's a very important element in this equation of individual unique foundation, along with the strengths, along with the values and the story that brought us where we are right now. So Strengths Velocity Lab is helping you go through this journey of discovery, because ultimately when you understand how you create patterns, how you create relationships, how you influence people through your strengths, how you inspire people through your story. Therefore, it's very easily to put all this at work to your new identity, new direction which you want to create in life, or for that matter, any kind of growth pattern.
In your book, Whole, Not Perfect, you make the case that wholeness is the goal, not perfection, rather. How does that reframe change how a high performer approaches their own growth?
So remember at the beginning of the conversation, I mentioned very briefly that perfectionism, it's what is the validation which we are trying to get from the external world, while wholeness, it's about integration, to have that kind of like very meaningful recognition of who we are internally and live in alignment with that. I think for high performing individuals, this reinvention and this alignment, it's not about becoming someone else. This wholeness, it's a recognition of our strengths, values, our voice, our story, and the purpose, and integrating that meaningfully into what we do career-wise or personal-wise or from the relationships perspective. I think people sometimes they believe that, reinvention, it's something like, very dramatic as transformation, that you really need to leave something behind and become something totally different. But from my experience, reinvention is actually this integration process. It's about, as a high-performing professional, reconnecting intentionally in what you do, your career path, the decisions you make, the path you choose as career, connect intentionally with your strengths, your values, your purpose. It's not about creating a new identity, but removing layers as you go through your career that not longer feel aligned. And I think this is important because many people believe that they really need to start over something, when actually what they need is to understand themselves more deeply.
The intentionality around that, but we also, there's intentionality in it that we have to set. But I also think there's a sense of responsibility. We are responsible for that shift. We are responsible for taking the time and pausing and getting clear on what does it look like next, or what do I need to let go of. Well, Laura, as we wrap up, I always love to ask a question to everyone, and that is, you are so beautifully articulate your journey, and I am sure you have picked up so much wisdom along the way. If it were your last day on earth, and of all that you have learned and experienced, and you could only impart one piece of wisdom with the world, what would that be?
I would say, for everyone who gets to a season of life when they feel uncomfortable, when they feel that there is a struggle, but also an energy which is almost pushing you to a direction. What I want to say is that they should embrace that moment, because that is the moment when actually life can become much more fulfilled, listening to what is meaningful and important for you and aligning that with the direction you are taking in life. And I think, I just want to reiterate that the danger is not changing. The danger is to continuing to live according to a definition of success that not longer belongs to you.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. Laura, I will have everything in the show notes, but where can people find you, follow you? Where can they go grab a copy of the book?
The book is available on Amazon and on all the other digital marketplaces. Whole, Not Perfect, the stories to support your reinvention without asking permission. Very boldly said. And also they can connect with me, and I love having a cup of coffee with one of my readers through LinkedIn. And I'm just a click away for anyone who wants to share anything about their thoughts about the book, what resonated most with them, and also to continue a conversation about reinvention without any kind of apologies, and going through the process, which is so meaningful, irrespective of the season of life you are in.
Fantastic. Well, I will have everything linked in the show notes to where you can go out, make sure to get a copy of the book. You only heard a little portion of it today. Thank you, Laura, for just showing up, for navigating your journey in such a manner where you now can share that experience with others and helping them find theirs.
Thank you, Sonny, for having me. Pleasure to meet your listeners and viewers wherever they are. And thank you for today's experience and journey.
Okay, stay with me for just a second before you go. Living with Hashimoto's and being in the middle of perimenopause means brain fog shows up in the middle of conversations, decisions, and moments that matter. And I refuse to stay there. I'm very selective about what I put in my body, intentional. So when Meraki Blue came to me wanting to support this community, I said yes because I already believed in what they do. Methylene Blue, mitochondrial health, cognitive performance, mental clarity. It works for me. I want it to work for you too. Meraki Blue is giving the Evoke Greatness community 20% off. Use the code Evoke Greatness, all caps, no spaces at checkout. I promise you, your brain isn't broken. It's just waiting on the right support. If today's episode challenged you, moved you, or lit a fire in your soul, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who's ready to rise in their leadership, their business, and their life. And if you haven't already, I'd be so grateful if you took 30 seconds to rate and review the podcast. It's one of the most powerful ways to support the show and help us reach more bold leaders like you. Because this isn't just a podcast, it's a movement. We're not here to play small. We're here to lead loud and elevate how we think, lead, and execute, one bold and unapologetic step at a time. Until next time, stay bold, stay grounded, and make moves that make mediocre uncomfortable.